Fleming, Professor of Sociology at Stony Brook University. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24 this evening. Now, Donald Trump is poised to lose the election, but the United States is a country divided. There wasn't that overwhelming shift away from Donald Trump and his rhetoric. He still managed to secure some 69 million votes. How does the country move forward?
I think it's extraordinary to first of all acknowledge that just a few months ago, millions of people, not just in this country, but around the world, saw George Floyd get lynched, right, on video, killed by a police officer. We saw the huge movements around racial justice. There's a huge upsurge in the number of people who were reading books on the subject and talking about it. And yet and still, here we are with nearly 70 million Americans who said that they wanted to keep Donald Trump in the White House, a president who has, of course, a well-known record of not just racist discourse, but racist practice and overtly embracing white supremacist groups. So how do we move forward? I mean, I think that's going to be a really uncertain path because traditionally, Democrat leaders like Biden have, prided themselves in reaching across the aisle and, reconciliation with the other side. But the reality is that, half of the electorate, more or less, is not just involved in some kind of a rational disagreement over policy, but also many people who support Trump are really driven by extremist ideology. They're people who genuinely believe that voting for a Democrat, for example, is a sin that will send them to hell, right? So the role of religious extremism in supporting not just Trump, but the spread of overt white supremacy and fascism is, I think, one of the major lessons to take away from this election. So the road forward is very uncertain. We don't even know who's necessarily going to win the election. But if Biden does win, I think it's quite unlikely that he will just be able to, make up and be friends with people who believe voting for him is a sin.
We're not sure if, who's going to firstly become the president. Then we're not sure if Donald Trump is going to concede defeat. And even if he does concede defeat, Donald Trump is not someone who's going to go off into the night and build his presidential library. He's going to be breathing down Joe Biden's neck, questioning every single decision he makes. He has a platform. He has his base. How does one learn to unite the country and reach across the aisle, as you said, Joe Biden says he wants to do, when you're going to have Donald Trump looming in the background?
I think that is an incredibly important question because it's not only that Trump will continue to loom in the background, I think he's going to be in the foreground. If Trump loses, as it looks like he will, not only will he contest this until the very end, even after January 21st, 2021, I'm sure that he will continue to be on the television screens of millions of people in this country and across the world. He will continue to play a huge role in our politics. And not just Trump, right? His family members, in many ways, have also overtaken the Republican Party. So I think, going forward, it's even possible that if Trump loses this election season, he could run again in 4 years. So I think, listen, if this were any other country where the sitting president looked like he genuinely has lost, if that occurs, you would have leaders from around the world condemning that and pushing for the respect of democracy. So I think the path forward is really also going to depend on international reaction. What are European leaders, Western leaders, but also leaders in African nations, Asian nations, and across the world, how are they going to react to whatever Trump does in the event he loses to disrupt democracy? Because that international pressure is also going to be a major factor moving forward.
Indeed. Now, you are the author of How to Be Less Stupid About Race, on racism, white supremacy, and the racial divide. Now, I want to talk about Barack Obama's presidency. It was a historic watershed moment in the United States, the first African American to occupy the White House. How historic would Vice President Kamala Harris be?
Thinking about what role Senator Harris could play in our politics moving forward, of course, brings up the precedent of Barack Obama. But I also think it's important to think about a few things here. Barack Obama came into office in 2008 on a wave of hope and inspiration, but there were many, many people on the left in the United States, and I'm one of them, who were also quite disappointed with the content and actual direction of his policies that diverted from that hope in many significant ways. And I think you're already seeing a lot of critique from the left of Kamala Harris with regard to her former role as a prosecutor. Her role in her relationship with regard to communities of color is something that remains to be seen. But I think there is a lot of energy around what it could mean to have a woman of color, a Black woman who's also of Asian descent at the highest level of political office, and on the brink herself, possibly, of becoming president in the event that Joe Biden, who of course is quite advanced in age, if who knows what could happen in the next few years. And in any case, she's clearly being groomed for 2024. So I think there'll be a lot of energy around Kamala Harris, but there's also going to be continued critique from the left who would like to see even the record of someone like Harris, who is a person of color, actually orient in more direct ways to support racial justice.
Crystal Fleming, thank you very much for joining us on the program today. In other news, over 60,000